This man is out of luck. Someone else didn't just catch a squirrel, even caught a fish, and he wasn't just hungry for days. I can't believe I lost my supplies backpack, causing himself to lose the flint. Can only guard the push behind the fire. Otherwise, it's in the extreme cold. Rely on their own integrity and hard resistance. Although on the fourth day of the race, one of the players has already withdrawn, but there are a lot of players out there. Let's go back to day one again. With Clegg here, he started with a laugh, and then very happy expression. I finally got myself into the race. Because he always signed up before, I never got elected, although he hasn't participated in it before. But he also knew the dangers here, so he quickly began to prepare it. Bear spray provided by the show crew. After all, he doesn't want to fail here. When he found out he'd been elected, quickly found another old man, revisited it from him, a way to live alone in the wilderness, to be able to win this competition, get that $500,000 bonus, let the family have a more stable life. He followed him into the forest, and he clutched the bow and arrow in his hand. Let's see if we can get started. You can hunt a moose, so you can live in peace. The first hard time, follow him out of the forest. Right here on the beach, saw the footprints of a bear, and it looks like a lot of them. This is starting to worry Mr. Clegg. After all, those bears don't know when. I'm going to hit him right back. So he immediately turned back to the forest, and he hasn't been moving very long. Suddenly, I saw a squirrel. So he quickly raised his bow and arrow. With that arrow flying, Clegg quickly stepped forward, see if the squirrel was hit. With him carrying a big rat, get in front of the camera, and it shows the squirrel's hand. In this big rat's hand, it's also a symbol of his first night. There will be no starvation. But he had another idea. As he pulls up his sleeve, showing the tattoo on top, he smeared the blood from his hands on it. According to him, it can ward off evil spirits. Then let Clegg do it there. Let's look at the other contestants. When Sarah was in front of the camera, she was picking sticks out there, trying to get that thing in the house. I don't know how she got into this mood. That's where they picked these things out. And the camera behind him. All of a sudden, it started ringing. Looks like after she got in here. I never paid attention to these things again. As she changes the battery and set out for the hunt. Don't look at Sarah as an older woman, but she's definitely not a simple person. Sarah got married. She and her husband moved to the forest to live. Although there is no money in this, but every day just needs. Try to survive in the forest, and that gives it a wealth of survival skills. But now Sarah and her husband. I'm older now. If we win this game, then you can retire early, living a comfortable life there. But because of her husband's health problems, the race is hers only. As Sarah left the camp, but she doesn't seem to have. Bring any kind of weapon with you. I wonder how she guarded against bears and borzoi.
I'm not afraid of them.
That's amazing. I didn't know she was so. I was able to say that. But it's not like she's after the meat. It's the berries that grow here. After all, the winter here is too long. Those berries don't survive at all. There won't be any access to it. As she went through hours of searching, found some too. And it's not just fruit. There are also mushrooms. As she finished picking things and began to push on, just in front of a lake, and she's seeing the environment here. Sarah felt like it was perfect for fishing. I just didn't realize there was a beaver here. If we can catch this creature, the next few days, I can guarantee my life. And that's what Sarah really regrets. He set out without a bow and arrow. Sure enough, a man can't be too confident. After all, God doesn't know when. It will bring you something beautiful. And how can you not grasp it? While Sarah was still there regretting it. Another contestant, Blake. It turned out to be the hunt right there. But he doesn't seem to have gained anything. Not even berries. It made him a little uncomfortable. I'm a little lost as to what's next. But then he remembered why he had come. That's when he was born. There are no supplies nearby. There weren't even a few people around. That leaves him with few friends. So he had to make his own fun. Then he thought of the wilderness. Where to hunt alone. And this orange game exists. Just the one he hasn't been to. He was very happy about it. Plus that last $500,000 bonus. It can also provide a better environment for the family. Let your children not be like you. As he found an environment, he immediately began to cut down trees. Build yourself the first home in this game. After all, It's the first big thing outside of food. Followed him to the roof. And a testament to this family. That's how stable it is. But there are problems. So he began to rebuild. And Clegg on the other side. After I got the squirrel, and he took his entrails and fished them in the river. Then they returned to the forest. Shelters began to be built, even though he only uses a few sticks. Use this tarp. It became his sanctuary. Although this is very simple to build and doesn't look solid, but he still believes it. Straight back to the river again. Get ready to see that hook. Is there any hook? As he pulls up the fishing line, there's something rolling around there too. And this fish in the hand. It's perfect for Clegg, although he wasted some of his guts. But he also got a fish. As he filled the pot with river water, started cooking over the campfire. Then he began to clean up the fish by the river and put in a pot to cook. It took a while though, but he roasted the squirrel ahead of time. After his fish is cooked, I got in front of the camera, trying to seduce us. Good thing I don't like fish that much. Otherwise, it would have been tempting. As the next day came, Peter was there watching the sunrise, even though he was in there in a stupor. But that's just because he didn't know what to do anymore. As he looked into the shelter, I decided to start the day first, and that is to look at this beautiful view, then solve the problem of thirst. After all I got in here yesterday, I've never drunk water like this. Slowly rising with the sun, he collected some wood, started taking out the flint and lighting the bonfire. But he was there for a long time. That's where it's not even a spark on the wood. This made him very anxious. Have no idea. It's just a little bit of wet wood. I can't believe I can't. So he made a big decision. That is to quench thirst first. Wait a while to light it. Even though the man has a hard time lighting a fire. But he's a very knowledgeable librarian. There's even the practice of surviving outside. And it can be done with limited materials. Make the most of it. But he entered the competition for the purpose. It's not the $500,000 prize. It's about giving it to your kids. Know that when faced with difficulties, don't think about giving up first. Try to work it out. With Peter out of the jungle, came to a pond. Let him discover a beautiful scene, although very beautiful, and a lot of fresh water. But these are not drinkable yet. After all, he still doesn't have a fire source. If I drink this water, it won't take long to get out of this game. So he started back to camp. After all, we're on the road. What if there's some kind of food? You might even find something to hunt. But on the way, Peter made an unexpected discovery. It turned out to be a bear's poop. But after Peter's analysis, the bear isn't around here anymore. So he went back again. As Peter took out the flint again, I pulled it up again. Although this time it was successful, but it soon went out again. But after Peter's efforts, I managed to set it on fire. But now it's noon. He started at 6 o'clock in the morning. The fire was lit until 10 o'clock now. And Blake on the other side. Much better than Peter. After all, he has started eating now. It's just some small fruit, but he can be of some help. So he quickly took out a bag. Collect the fruit. But then Black had another thought. Give the fruit a squeeze. Well, it looks a lot like toothpaste. It reminds me that he hasn't brushed his teeth yet. Although the fruit here looks a lot, but there's still no meat. As he went deeper and deeper into the forest, all of a sudden, I heard a squirrel. But he wasn't confident in his archery, so they started making traps. It's pretty handy after all, as Blake went to gather firewood, but made an unexpected discovery. So he quickly followed and took out his bow and arrow to shoot the arrows straight out and hurriedly went up.
Thank you, little buddy, for giving me yourself.
As he takes the squirrel back to camp, quickly began to skin it, although it's a little hard to pull out. But let it be done successfully, with the squirrels burning over the campfire. Also after an hour, the contents are also successfully cooked. As he ate the meat into his mouth, turns out this stuff is really good. Just a little more salt would help. And Sarah on the other side, after setting up his own camp, but also began to do their own grooming. With him done with everything, it is also beginning again for shelter. The subsequent construction work began. After all, this family now, it's not very strong yet, although she tried very hard. But Sarah's belly wasn't strong enough. So Sarah went down to the river again, ready to see if the beaver is still around. Followed her to the river with her bow and arrow. He squatted in a corner, wait for the beaver to show up. although this is a little long, but still lets Sarah see it. As the beavers get closer, Sarah fired the arrow right away, although the response just got really good. But nothing has surfaced. This is Sarah worried. But in order to get something, Sarah quickly took off her clothes and walked slowly into the river, walking carefully with her inside and a successful arrow out. But there are no beavers on it. It made it hard for Sarah. After all, it's not just a waste of time. And I soak my clothes. Even on the water right now, there's no beavers left. Sarah had to go back to camp, continue to endure this day without food. With the arrival of the third day of the competition, Jack didn't wake up on his own, but by the nearby Hydong Green. A wake-up call was provided, and that made it hard for Jack. Stood there with him for a moment. I decided to go fishing, but he spent a lot of time in camp, only to find that his backpack is missing. I even looked back for a while, and you can't see anything. This made Jack very sad. After all, if there's no fishing line, then you have to make it yourself. After all, this is his future. After hours of labor, it was also successfully completed. Follow him to the river. Just throw it into the water. And Peter on the other side. I also started my own work. Although now he is very hungry, but we still have to make shelters. After all, he had a humble home. For this, he must build hard today. And it's a permanent shelter, not the temporary ones. And that means a lot of work. But now the weather is getting cold. For that, he had to make camp in advance. After all, if it's too late, the moss on the land is dead, so his bed won't be any softer. As Peter brought some pine needles, also began to make the bed, while he was still trying. The fourth day came slowly. In Jack's camp, though, the nets were successfully placed. But since his backpack is missing, he'll have a hard time starting a fire again now. For this, he must prepare. That's why he cooked it in a pot. It's not a food. It's some dry rot. The water above it will dry up. As he took out a piece of bark, trying to use it as a container. This is very strange. As he finished everything, and we successfully built the container. Then he pulled out a belt buckle. And this thing is made of carbon steel. It can replace the roll of flint. Although his spark is small, but he can still succeed. Those coals light up a little. As he did an experiment, succeeded in reigniting the fire. He also succeeded in making tinderboxes. And when the fifth day comes, Jack quickly lifted the net, but there was nothing on it. But then he saw the beaver again, but he didn't want to lose an arrow. Jack planted a willow branch for this purpose. Where can we see if we can attract the beavers? Not sure why, though. Those beavers will be attracted. But Jack was confident, as he sat down on the side of the grass. Also began to wait for the beaver to come. After all, it's a good energy saver. Jack hasn't eaten yet. I only ate some wild fruits on the roadside. But he waited till 10 o'clock, and still nothing happened. It made him feel bad. And Clegg on the other side. It was a little bit of a whimsy. With your own quiver, that is, as a bottle of water. Although all this is very simple. But it's a good idea. But that's where his arrows will be. Just like Cubby, put on your lap. And at that moment, he took out a leather and cut it up and put a stick inside to tie it. Then he put an arrow on it. And the finished product is very good. It even looks more convenient than a quiver. This guy is really smart. Followed him to the beach. I saw a lot of footprints again. There's even a moose. And it looks very fresh. So Clegg quickly followed. Let's see if we can catch anything. After all, there are not many opportunities like this. And when he was about to come out of the forest, also successful in seeing a moose, it's just a little far away from him. There's even a swamp in front of us. But to be able to eat, Clegg walked on. As he stopped, he changed his strategy and stopped moving forward. It draws them in through sound, although this is a very difficult voice. But he still managed to attract the moose. But it wasn't close enough, so he continued to simulate the sound of a moose. And that's what made him successful again. Keep that moose coming closer. So he hurried like a tiger, began to move slowly forward. When that moose came into view, Clegg quickly raised his bow and arrow. Although the first arrow was successful, but it didn't kill him, Clegg quickly fired another arrow, though he did hit the moose again. But the bad thing was the deer. He ran away with his badly wounded body. This makes him very uncomfortable. That was for a meal ticket, even one that lasts half a month. I can get a meal ticket without going hungry. He just slipped out in front of me, and it's not even likely to happen again. This situation today, it's basically impossible. Well, that's all for this program. Give it a thumbs up, and let's look forward to the next episode.